Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle. Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle. A lot of practical examples of Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle are out there. तो एक तो लिखिए the Kaldor-Hicks potential compensation principle. The Kaldor-Hicks potential compensation principle underlines the Kaldor-Hicks potential compensation principle underlines partial equilibrium welfare analysis, in imperfectly competitive markets. In imperfectly competitive markets. It depends on the assumption that changes in consumer. It depends on the assumption that changes in consumer and producer surplus are weighted equally and that the marginal utility of income is constant. Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle is a part of new welfare economics. Pareto laid the foundation of the modern welfare economics. Pareto laid the foundation of the modern welfare economics by formulating the concept of social optimum, which is based on the concept of ordinal utility. In new welfare economics, economists like Kaldor, Hicks, and Citowski. Spelling correct लिखिएगा. Kaldor, Hicks, and Citowski, SCITOVSKY, have made efforts to evaluate the changes in social welfare resulting from any economic reorganization which harms somebody and benefits the others. Assumptions. The satisfaction of an individual is independent of the others. And he is the best judge of his welfare. Second, there exist no externalities of consumption and production. There exist no externalities of consumption and production. Next, the taste of the individual remain constant. The taste of the individual remain constant. Utility can be measured ordinarily. Utility can, next assumption, utility can be measured ordinarily, and interpersonal comparisons of utilities are not possible. Utility can be measured ordinarily, and interpersonal com- comparisons of utilities are not possible. Change the line. Nicholas Kaldor, that was his full name, was the first economist to give a welfare criteria. Nicholas Kaldor was the first economist to give a welfare criteria. He was the first economist to give a welfare criteria on compensating payments. On compensating payments. Kaldor's criteria help us measure the welfare implication. Kaldor criteria help us to measure the welfare implication of a movement. Kaldor criteria help us to measure the welfare implication of a movement in either direction. On the contract curve in terms of Edgeworth-Box diagram. Now I will give you a gist of the compensating principle. This is the main body of the theory. According to Kaldor welfare criteria, if a certain change in economic organization, if a certain change in economic organization or policy, if a certain change in economic organization or policy makes someone better off, makes some people better off and other worse off. Comma, then a change will increase social welfare. Will increase social welfare if those who gain from the change could compensate the loser and still be better off than before. And still be better off than before. In the words of Professor Baumol, Baumol, quote, Kaldor's criteria state that a change in an improvement if those who gain evaluate their gain at a higher figure, if those who gain evaluate their gain at a higher figure than the losses, than the value which the loser set upon their losses, than the value which the loser set upon their losses. Change the line. Thus, if any policy change benefits any one section of the society, thus, if any policy change benefits any one section of the society, ब्रैकेट में लिख लीजिएगा gainers, to such an extent that it is better off, to such an extent that it is better off even after the payment of compensation, that it is better off even after the payment of compensation, even after the payment of compensation to the other section of the society, ब्रैकेट में लिखिएगा losers, out of the benefits received, out of the benefits received, then that change leads to increase in social welfare. Then that change leads to increase in social welfare. There's a diagram also on this one. I'll show you a diagram in the next slide. Just now I'll give you some of the live and very much relevant examples of Kaldor Hicks compensation principle. The principle states that if someone is getting better off without or compensation वो किसी चीज का अगर better off हुआ है तो दे रहा है without changing his own position, उसकी अपनी position पे कोई खास फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, then that case the social welfare of the economy. So it's very realistic because in this model there is a loser also. Okay. In this case, the first example can be okay. A change is an improvement of the loser. A change is an improvement if the loser in the change situation, if the loser in the change situation cannot profitably bribe the gainers, cannot profitably bribe the gainers not to change from the original situation, not to change from the original situation. Hicks Hicks have given his criteria from the loser's point of view. Hicks has given his criteria from the loser's point of view, while Kaldor had formulated his criteria from gainer's point of view. So Hicks has formulated his criteria from loser's point of view, while Kaldor has formulated his criteria from gainer's point of view. So the two criteria are really the same. The two criteria are really the same. And that is why they are generally called by single name Kaldor-Hicks criteria. That is why they are generally called by the single name Kaldor-Hicks compensation. Okay. Kaldor-Hicks criteria can lead you to an increase in inequality and can also be perceived as unfair. Kaldor-Hicks criteria can also be lead to an increase in inequality and be perceived as unfair. For example, those under flight path may feel it is unfair. Those under flight path may feel it is unfair. They have been singled out to have to put up with an airport nearby. They have been singled out to have it put up with the airport nearby. It places economic welfare, utility above other moral considerations. It places economic welfare and total utility, total economic utility economic utility above other moral considerations. The compensation principle suggested by Kaldor and Hicks, even though stated in different words, the compensation principle suggested by Kaldor and Hicks, even though stated in different words, comma, actually means the same thing. The only difference is that Hicks has given his criteria from the point of view of losers, whereas Kaldor formulated his criteria from point of view of gainers. The only difference is that Hicks has given his criteria from viewpoint of losers. Kaldor formulated his criteria from viewpoint of gainers. Right. Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle Okay. Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle can be used in examples like climate change, climate change, cigarette smoking in the public are some of the factors, some of the examples of Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle. In case of climate change, okay. Um, okay. There are two diagrams which I cannot show it right now, but will do sometimes in the future. After Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle, write Cytovsky paradox. Citovsky. Cytovsky paradox. Cytovsky pointed out an important limitation of Kaldor-Hicks criteria. Cytovsky pointed out an important limitation of Kaldor-Hicks criteria. He showed that, if in some situation, position B is shown to be an improvement over position A. This position is given in the diagram. डायग्राम बनाने के लिए सिंपल डायग्राम ओ एक्स एक्सिस ओ वाई एक्सिस दीजिए और उसमें दोनों डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग दो कर्व बना दीजिए बस टचिंग टू द एक्सिस downward sloping curves, two parallel downward sloping curve touching to both the axes. One is नीचे वाला जो बनेगा वो U है, जो ऊपर वाला आप लोगों ने बनाया वो U dash है. It's a inverted downward sloping two curves. Okay, he showed that if in some situation position B is shown to be an improvement over position A, is shown to have improvement over position A on Kaldor-Hicks criteria, it may be possible that position A is also shown to be an improvement over B. It may be possible that position A is also shown to be an improvement over B on the basis of the same criteria. Okay. Now, in case of a Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle, the concept of financial composition and financial compensation and economic compensation are distinct are distinguished upon, are rather differentiated upon. Financial compensation refers to the act of providing a person. Financial compensation reports or refers to the act of providing a person with money or things of economic value or other things of economic value in exchange for their goods, labor, or to provide for the cost of inquiries that they have incurred. Anyway, labor or to provide for the cost of inquiries that they have incurred. This is a financial compensation दे रहा है कि economic compensation दे रहा है वो इस definition पे depend करता है. Okay. As I was talking about cytovesky, okay. When the two utility possibility curves are non-intersecting, when the two utility possibility curves are non-intersecting and changes involves movement from a position on a lower utility possibility curve and change involves movement from a position on a lower utility possibility curve to a position on a higher utility possibility curve. From a position on a lower utility possibility curve the change raises social welfare on the basis of Kaldor-Hicks cytovesky criteria. The change raises social welfare on the basis of Kaldor-Hicks cytovesky criteria. This happens only when a change brings about. This happens only when the change brings about increase in aggregate output or real income. Increase in aggregate output or real income. Kaldor, Hicks and cytovesky compensation tests are based on several restrictive assumptions. अब तीनों का लिखिएगा. Kaldor, Hicks, cytovesky compensation tests are based on several restrictive assumptions. First, it is assumed that individual tastes do not change. It is assumed that individual tastes do not change and there are no external effects. It is assumed that individual tastes do not change and there are no external efforts. Second, it is assumed that interpersonal of welfare are inadmissible. It is assumed that interpersonal comparisons of welfare are inadmissible. Third point, it is assumed that individuals are the best judge of their own welfare. Now write about Saito-Wesky paradox. Saito-Wesky has pointed out that the Kaldor-Hicks compensation test has a contradiction. Saito-Wesky has pointed out that the Kaldor-Hicks compensation test has a contradiction. Saito-Wesky wanted an economic change to satisfy double test. Saito-Wesky wanted an economic change to satisfy double test, the fulfillment of double test, the fulfillment of Kaldor-Hicks test plus the non-fulfillment of the reversal test. अब इनको दोनों में जब मैं पढ़ाऊंगी what is the test and what is the reversal test, तब इसको आगे बढ़ाएंगे. अभी के लिए conclusion में है the Saito-Wesky wanted an economic change to satisfy double test, the fulfillment of Kaldor's test plus the non-fulfillment of the reversal test. So the concept of social welfare by Kaldor, Hicks, and Saito-Wesky. There are many people who criticize them. Compensation principle को भी जैसे कि climate change में the gainer is a developed मैंने पहले भी बताया and underdeveloped countries are the loser. तो gainer उसको दे के थोड़े पैसे लगाए and he is actually free from all that. But उसमें भी so that is the situation. Person, is just paying money. Now the financial compensation, as I told you, आता है. ये किस तरीके से आता है वो depend करेगा. But then the other person is just paying money और उसकी अपनी income भी वैसी ही रहेगी जैसे पहले. But the other person can get better off. This is the idea of the compensation. But compensation does not always work because not only that the compensation is there, और भी चारों तरफ बहुत सारे economic variable काम कर रहे होते हैं. I'll give you an example of Trump की अगर आप लोगों ने policy follow की होगी, let me give you his example only. He not only refused to give any compensation to the other countries, he said this is absolute hoax, climate change. कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं है. There is no such thing. And you know the effect of that, although कितना बड़ा he's lying and all that, manipulating, still he has that the bank, what do you call it, the vote bank. So here the compensation is being done not to what you say, the country को better करने के लिए compensation नहीं हो रहा है. उसको अपना vote bank में अपनी growth rate को सामने रखना है. That is his growth rate will keep on increasing. So that way they will not budge. So उसको पूरा वो hoax ही बता दिया उन्होंने. Even this is the same thing he's doing with other policies, but case with the hoax. So in that case, his voters are satisfied that वो growth चलती रहेगी, that means income आती रहेगी. So, but वो compensate करते हैं developing countries को by giving them money. So this is the financial compensation. तो Kaldor-Hicks compensation principles welfare से कुछ लेना देना नहीं होता उनका, क्योंकि welfare वो करेंगे नहीं उससे, welfare होता नहीं. The end result is not welfare. Pareto optimality के स्ट्रिक्ट रूल्स जरूर हैं, बट उससे एट द एंड रिजल्ट वेलफेयर निकलता है. दैट्स अ फैक्ट. लाइक इसी में एक कॉन्सेप्ट लिख लीजिएगा, पेरेटो सुपीरियोरिटी. पेरेटो सुपीरियोरिटी भी कैल्डर हिक्स कंपनसेशन प्रिंसिपल से जुड़ी हुई है. कोट करिएगा, स्टेट ऑफ अफेयर्स state of affair B is Pareto superior to state of affair A. State of affair B is Pareto superior to state of affair A when at least one person prefers state B to A. When at least one person prefers state B to A and no person is less content and no person is less content in state B than A. And no person is less content in state B than in A. पेरेटो सुपीरियोरिटी के बारे में थोड़ा सा और इसको पढ़िएगा, इस पे थोड़े से शॉर्ट नोट और लिखिएगा. पेरेटो सुपीरियोरिटी, देयर आर मेनी एग्जांपल्स जो कि पेरेटो एफिशिएंसी को लेके हैं. आई गिव यू वन एग्जांपल. ओके, कंसिडर एंड पहला एग्जांपल है, एफिशिएंसी समझ में आएगी. कंसिडर एन इकोनॉमी दैट कंटेन्स ओनली वन गुड which everyone likes. Consider an economy that contains only one good which everyone likes. Then every allocation is Pareto efficient. Then every allocation is Pareto efficient. Comma लिखिएगा. The only way to make someone better off is to give them more of the good. Is to give them more of the good. In which case someone else will be. In which case someone else would be. Or in which case someone else will have less of the good. Will have less of the good and hence be worse off. And hence be worse off. Second example. The economy contains two people and two goods. The economy contains two people and two goods, apple and banana. ये अगर दिया होगा आपको तो इसको मत लिखिएगा, अगर नहीं दिया तो लिख लीजिएगा. एप्पल एंड बनाना. पर्सन वन लाइक्स एंड डिसलाइक्स बनाना. पर्सन वन लाइक्स एप्पल एंड डिसलाइक्स बनाना. ब्रैकेट में लिखिएगा, द मोर बनानास शी हैज. The more bananas she has, the worse off the other person is. Bracket close. Person 2 likes bananas and dislikes apples. And person 2 likes bananas and dislikes apples. There are 100 apples and 100 bananas available. There are 100 apples and 100 bananas available. The only allocation that is Pareto efficient in this case is person 1 has all the apples and person 2 should have all the bananas. The only allocation that is Pareto efficient is that in which person 1 should have all the apples and person 2 should have all the bananas. इसमें और कोई सिचुएशन में someone will become worse off, the another one will become उसके expense पे better off हो जाएगा. इसलिए हर वो सिचुएशन जो कि इक्विलिब्रियम की सिचुएशन होगी वो पेरेटो एफिशिएंसी कहलाएगी. उससे जरा सा हटेंगे आप तो in that case पेरेटो inefficiency can be the result. So I'm ending this class right now. I'll be taking up other topics in the next class. In the meantime, we are trying to put our schedule for internal assessment. इसको देखते हैं आगे. मैं थोड़ी टाइम में उसको लगा दूंगी. I'll be sending it on the groups also.